Hello and welcome back to episode 81 of the Engage 8 podcast. I am Josh with my co-host Mike. Today we are recapping week 4 of the NFL season starting from Thursday night going all the way up until Sunday night football. We're currently recording this during that Sunday night football game. We will recap that Sunday night football game and the two Monday night football games on our episode on Wednesday. So stay tuned for that. But today we are going to do every other game from week 4 starting with Thursday night football. Cowboys beat the Giants 20-15. The Giants are starting to look pretty solid for what they have on their roster. Another unconvincing win from Dallas. The Giants go out and get field goals on their first 3 drives of this game. Another game though where the Giants get only field goals. They finished with just 5 field goals in this one and no touchdowns overall. Giants defense was very solid though, although they only did get to sack Dak once in this one. Daniel Jones, he was solid in this one, nothing crazy, but he goes for 281, throws one pick, 29 for 40. He's pretty good on the completion percentage. And overall, what you want from him, he's not going to go out there and be phenomenal. You don't expect that from him, but you want him to be better than you saw week 1, and that's what he's been so far since then. Of course, Malik Neighbors was fantastic. Him and Wan'Dale Robinson are a clear wide receiver 1 and 2 for this team, and it's two pretty solid weapons for Daniel Jones to use. Singletary didn't really get going fully in this game. He didn't have a good game at all, but he's been solid leading up until this. On the Cowboys side, they're shaky on offense once again, but that seems to be a trend early on in seasons for them. Their defense was much better today. Of course, like I said, they held the Giants to just 5 field goals, no touchdowns in this one, but they're probably going to lose Lawrence long term. It seems like we don't fully know the result of that, or at least I didn't see if we do have a result of that yet. But Cowboys, unconvincing win, but one they needed to get. They moved to 2-2, and the Giants are a scrappy 1-3.
Yeah, Micah Parsons and Demarcus Lawrence both got hurt. Demarcus Lawrence is expected to miss multiple weeks. He has a foot injury, and Micah Parsons a high ankle sprain. They will both likely be out until after their week 7. You're losing your two best pass rushers for a long time with your defense already struggling. That's not good. Their defense was definitely better in this game. They had been very bad against the run, the worst defense against the run. Here against the Giants, only 26 yards on 24 carries. Very good for them in that. Offensively, Dak Prescott was solid. CD Lamb had a good game, 7 catches, 98 yards, and a touchdown. And Brandon Aubrey again, he hits from 60 and 40, but misses a field goal late to cover for the Cowboys. That one really hurt. Thought I
Love to
had
see
it.
that.
Yeah, thought I had it. But for the Giants, another solid game from Daniel Jones. He's been better since week 1. He's getting more comfortable. I still feel like he's holding back this offense a little bit, but overall, he's getting better, which is really what they need. They didn't have a run game in this one, like I just said, but Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson both had 14 plus targets. Malik Neighbors does get hurt in this one, but it seems like he'll be okay. I was worried about a concussion. Better from the Giants. They just need to almost be careful. They're almost giving Neighbors the ball too much, but you got to get the ball. Wan'Dale Robinson just gets a million receptions. They can get their offense going. They can be a scrappy team, but Cowboys are just better than them and deeper.
Okay, moving on here to the second game. Steelers lose in Indianapolis to the Colts 27-24. Anthony Richardson getting hurt is really the story of this one. I don't truly, and I was telling you about this earlier, I just don't understand why he goes out after getting hit. He misses a couple plays, and then the first play back in, they have him run a keeper. That just makes no sense to me. He like obviously couldn't run. He didn't even get hit hard. Minka kind of just let him fall and just touched him, but he was in trouble after that. He never comes back in the game. But Flacco came in and looked really solid. I mean, he did exactly what you want from Joe Flacco. There's a reason that the Colts went and invested in a backup quarterback this year, a guy that took his team to the playoffs last season, because they have a quarterback that can be subject to going out. Although Anthony Richardson, in his short time, similar to when he went out last year, in his short time in this game, he looked really good. 3 for 4, 71 yards. They drove down the field easily in that first one, and he looked solid and against a really, really good defense in Pittsburgh. So you hate to see him go out, but Flacco comes in and does pretty well. JT ran it well versus a pretty good defense, but got hurt late in this one. Maybe you know the extent of that injury. I do not at the current moment. For the Steelers, Fields has a 312-yard passing game. That is the second most in his career. I believe it was last year against the Bucks. He had the most of his career. This is the second most. He has looked so good in 4 games for the Steelers. I'm very impressed by him. He's not making the same mistakes. He's not just always choosing to tuck and run in every situation. He's taking chances. He had a ton of good balls to George Pickens today, and he looked really, really good. We know the Colts defense isn't anything special, but he still looked really good today, and that's what you want to see. And he knows like Russell Wilson's coming back. We know it's gonna either if it's not next week, it's the week after. He's breathing down his neck, and Fields is playing outstanding. I'm sure we'll talk about it in the coming week when we preview the next Steelers game, but I think you got to rock with Fields right now. Colts run defense though has been much better in these past 2 games. They were great against the Bears. They were great today against Pittsburgh. They didn't have much going at all. Steelers are just a tough team though. They went down 17 and they're just not a team that's going to go away down 17. They stayed fighting in it and they just lost late. Fields once again just he as good as he's been in this stretch to start the season, he still has that same woe of he can't get it done at the end of a game if you need a drive from him. We're still seeing that from him. For the Colts and AR, he might not miss much time, but Flacco is going to be more than fine in his absence if he needs to take over for a couple games. You could tell he looked good. He looks fresh, and right out the gate, he didn't even skip a beat. He looks solid. This is a tough loss though for Pittsburgh. They're really starting to figure it out. Fields looks great. I think this is why you can lose a game like this going into Indy. It's a tough place to play. You're playing against a veteran in Joe Flacco once he comes in. But Steelers fought in this game. They only lose by 3. They're right away from being 4-0, and that's why you go and you beat the teams you need to beat and give yourself a 3-game cushion going into week 4.
Yeah, great game overall. I thought the Steelers were going to come back late and kind of just steal a win from them, but I had forgot that Justin Fields was on the other side of the field and he's unable to get those game-winning
It's
drives.
not.
Um, Unfortunately, in this one, it was just the center snapping the ball when Justin Fields basically wasn't looking at all. They lose about 15 yards on that and just really put them back on that last drive. They only needed a field goal and they were unable to get there. Fields looked great in this game, 312 yards, a touchdown, no picks. Does have one very bad fumble on a sack that he just kind of made a bad play on, but he responded very well to that bad play with 2 consecutive touchdown drives to keep his team in the game. George Pickens, he was also solid in this one, 7 catches, 113 yards, looked very good, was dominating Jalen Jones and the Colts secondary for most of the game. Surprisingly, I thought the Steelers would run the ball very well in this game. They really didn't. Najee Harris, 13 carries for 19 yards, unable to get it done on the ground. There was no Jalen Warren. Justin Fields was the Steelers' best rusher by far, and it was kind of just scrambles and then two nice touchdown runs in the red zone that the Colts give that up almost every time. But offensively for the Colts, Anthony Richardson in his short 2 drives looked very good. Does have one throw. He can hit these. He had a throw on the first drive to Michael Pittman on the first play that was just phenomenal. Somehow got over the defenders, was a laser. And then he responds on the next play, just completely missing him on a simple out route.
Yeah.
It's kind of just incredible how he can hit difficult throws with ease, and then all of a sudden the easy throws he just completely shanks on. That's something I think that just reps will fix and just more time in the pocket will fix, but just crazy to see. Does get injured with a hip pointer. It seems like week. I was really expecting him to come back in. I'd seen on Twitter there's videos of him. He just completely sprinted out of the tunnel, went to the sidelines. They were on a TV timeout. He ran onto the field, and then all of a sudden they just took his helmet away and he just didn't go back into the game. They ruled him out. Very interesting. I wouldn't have ruled him out at all. I would have at least kept him on the sidelines in case something happened to Flacco and you have then no quarterback to go in. But very interesting. Jonathan Taylor on the ground continues to be very good. The Colts offensive line, they're missing Ryan Kelly, kind of a surprising inactive from him. But Tanner Bortolini, rookie 4th rounder from Wisconsin, comes in and played very good. Looked like maybe the future at that position for the Colts with Kelly getting older. They were able to run the ball well with Taylor. He had a touchdown, 88 yards rushing. He was great. And then when Flacco come in, the offense completely changed how they were running. There was a lot of just pocket passes from Flacco, considering he's old and kind of just a statue. But Michael Pittman has his best game of the season, 6 catches, 113 yards on 9 targets. Josh Downs in his second game this year looked very good. That ankle that he had injured in the training camp and preseason looked fine. He had 8 catches. Their offensive line was able to keep TJ Watt pretty quiet. You didn't really hear his name in this game at all. So shout out to Braden Smith for that. He had been banged up and didn't practice, I don't think, all week going into the game. So very impressive from him. And then defensively, like I said, they stopped the run. EJ Speed and Zaire Franklin were very good in this one. I've been very critical of them all season with their struggles in the run game, but They were great against the Bears last week, and they were phenomenal this week against the Steelers. I think EJ Speed is second in tackles this week. So nice win for the Colts at home. You beat the Steelers last year. You beat them again this year. That's 2 in a row. That's a team that used to kind of beat up on the Colts a little bit for a while, but Colts are back to beating up on Pittsburgh. And there was a rumor, or there was a video, I think it was AI generated, of some Colts fans burning some terrible towels.
Oh,
Um,
really?
so if it was real, maybe they beat the curse, but I'm just gonna say it was AI generated, although it
Yeah,
was
it's not a good
100%
idea.
real.
I was worried. I was worried about the Colts this morning when they ruled out R. Kelly. I was like, I don't know if they're going to be able to run at all with JT, especially against such a good
Oh,
defense.
Mark Kelly's great.
No, I came to that conclusion today that his initial like his name on the thing is R. Kelly. I just never picked up on that, and then I'm like, wow, that's just hilarious. How have I not said anything about that?
Yeah,
But no, like I actually was worried for the Colts. I was like, I don't know if they're gonna be able to run the ball in this one, and the Steelers defense is so good, but they're able
I
to do it.
I didn't expect the Colts to win this game, and once I saw the first drive, I was like, yeah, of course, this is a game the Colts are gonna find a way to look good and win.
I thought they were gonna find a way to lose.
Yeah,
They
well, once
it,
Anthony Richardson got hurt, I thought they were gonna find a way to lose. Yeah.
yeah, but they get it done. They moved to 2-2, and it looks a lot better than it looked 2 weeks ago. So
Oh yeah, and sitting solidly in second in that division right now.
yep, exactly. And when the did Defoe go to IR?
Yes.
So what are they thinking? 4 weeks, or are they thinking more?
Uh, Probably at least 4 weeks. I'd love for him to come back then, but
Well, it's gonna be at
uh,
least 4 weeks. But yeah, I
well, I
mean
just mean like
that would be
minimum
nice. That'd be nice if he
need him
came
back.
back after right after the IR. That'd be sweet.
That'd be ideal, but
Colts were a team that were hyped up going into the season, and that hype obviously died when you start 0-2 and you give up like 800 rushing yards in 2 games.
yeah,
But you go and you win two back-to-back games. Steelers, I think, are a good team. Bears, I don't know, but you're in a good spot now. And honestly,
I
I don't hate him with Flacco either.
mean, I don't hate him with Flacco. I just think their ceiling can be a lot lower, especially long term with Flacco.
Yeah, I agree. But moving on here to Vikings beating the Packers in Lambeau 31-29. This one kind of felt a little bit Georgia Bama-esque this weekend. We'll recap that game on our next episode this week. But Vikings go up 28-0 early in this one. It went from a game that we were really excited to see how this one was going to go. Jordan Love's first game back against a Vikings team that's undefeated and probably the hottest team in football right now. And they go up 28-0, and it's okay, this kind of feels like it's over. And the Packers offense was just horrible in the first three quarters. Even the beginning of the fourth, they weren't great, but they got going in the fourth quarter. They figured it out. They weren't punting as much. Love didn't turn it over late, but the Vikings defense was just straight up dominant this whole game. They played a little back in that fourth quarter and let the Packers take what they could, and maybe they let it get a little more out of hand than they should have. But regardless, that's not going to take away from the first three quarters. They dominated the Packers in the first three quarters, and this is a really, really good offense that they dominated. Darnold has another great game, throws for three touchdowns. Jair Alexander did get ruled out of this game before, and that was definitely something that I considered. And then for some reason, when I went to finalize my picks, I didn't think about it anymore. And that's a problem. Darnold feasted on that. Jefferson was great. We missed out on seeing that matchup with him and Jair. Hopefully, we see that later in the season. He has three touchdowns, seven total turnovers in this game. But the team with three beats the team with four, as it tends to go when there's a lot of turnovers in these games. Neither team ran it super well in this one. Aaron Jones was solid, but you'd expect more from him just because the Vikings were up by so much. They were trying to run the ball. It's a revenge game for him. He got a good amount of carries. You expect to get more from him, but he was solid. And what I'm getting coming out of this is the NFC North is confirmed, in my opinion, one of the best divisions, if not the best division in football right now. The Lions, Vikings, and Packers, I think, are all good teams. The Bears can be good. They're not good right now, but they can be good. But they have three guaranteed good teams. And this ended up being a really, really good game. I'm excited to see them when they play again.
Yeah, the Vikings continue to be one of, if not the best team in football right now. The way their defense has been playing overall, phenomenal. They forced 4 turnovers in this one. They forced Jordan Love to 3 interceptions. He does have 4 touchdowns, a little shaky return to the lineup for Jordan Love, but you're going against a tough defense. I guess that's kind of warranted. Jaden Reed has another phenomenal game. We saw how good he was with Jordan Love in week 1. He continues that in his second game with Jordan Love in week 4. 7 catches, 139 yards, and a touchdown. Wicks gets 2 touchdowns, and it looks like they do possibly lose Christian Watson, though. I think I just saw that he has a high ankle sprain.
Yep.
Yep, suffered a high ankle sprain during this game. So they're so almost deep at that position. It's not going to hurt too much, but it does hurt losing a guy like that. Josh Jacobs continues to kind of be a little quiet and basically split carries with Emmanuel Wilson 9-8. Vikings tried to almost blow this game late, but it really never got to that. Sam Darnold started out this game phenomenal. They struggled offensively a little bit in the second and third quarter. They were so good in the first; it's kind of hard to keep up, going up 28-0. But their defense is able to slow down the Packers. They finished the job off. Aaron Jones is great. Justin Jefferson adds another touchdown to his consecutive record. If it wasn't for a really bad muffed punt by Jalen Naylor, where he just kind of gave the Packers a touchdown, this game would have been a little more lopsided than it was. But good win for the Vikings, 4-0. They continue to be the hottest team in football. I'm trying to see who they got next week. Next week they have the Jets, so it's a winnable game.
It's an interesting one. It's more than a winnable game at this point, but
yeah,
we'll get to the Jets
it's
later.
I think it's in London.
Oh, right. Yeah, London game starts next week. Yeah, 9:30. And I'll be back in Central Time, of course, so
8:30 a.m.
Brutal, right? The one time I'm in Central Time, it's 8:30, but we'll move on here to I was gonna say the muff punt thing, muff kick. We had a ton of muff punts and muff kicks this week, like a lot of them, and a lot of them made big differences. This one ended up not making that big of a difference, but kept him in it, I guess. But we'll move on here to staying in the NFC North with the Bears beating the Rams 24-18. Bears offense did not look good for much of this game, but they had a big stretch at the end of the third to the beginning of the fourth where they really did look good, and they were able to pull away from the Rams, had back-to-back drives with touchdowns, and got the job done. Bears run game was the story of the day. They ran for 131. Were they phenomenal? No. Were they better than they've been all season? Yes. I had my dad call me after this game and try to convince me how much better that Roshan Johnson was than DeAndre Swift. And he's like, yeah, Swift just goes east and west. He never goes north south. And I get that. And he is right there. He's 100% right there. The problem is that's how Swift runs and that's how he gets his most effectiveness. The problem is the Bears' offensive line isn't good enough for him to do the east-west thing before he can go north-south. Johnson goes in there and he runs straight down their throat, and that's all they can do because he's getting no blocks anyway. So he just has to try to run him over. Swift can't run his style. And who is that on? That's on King Poles. That's who it's on. Don't get a running back. You wouldn't go get Le'Veon Bell if you had a dog shit O-line. You just wouldn't do it. That's not a scheme fit. It doesn't work. They did that with Swift. It hasn't worked out for them, but I think Swift is a really good back. He had a 36-yard touchdown run today. I think if the Bears O-line can improve, and they've been so bad that they have to improve or stay the same, they're not going to get worse. I think he's going to look better as the year goes on. The Bears win the turnover battle in this one 2-0. That was a big story of this one. Bears defense came to play as they have been. They've been playing great all year long. They're keeping Caleb in a spot where he doesn't have to do a ton. They don't need 35 points for tough drop from Mark Andrews there. They don't need to put up 35 points per game because their defense has been so good. And we've been saying it since the season started. As much as the receivers and having a good tight end is cool for Caleb to enter his career, having a dominant defense is better than all of that, and that's what they've had so far. They've been a pretty solid unit. The Bears' next 5 games here, though, they got Panthers, then they got the Jags in London, and they have a bye week. Then they're at Commanders, at Cardinals, and Patriots. You got to go a minimum 3-2 in that 5-game stretch if you want to compete and make a playoff spot. I think they definitely can. You can definitely beat the Panthers and the Patriots. Can you win one of Jaguars in London, at Commanders, and Cardinals at home? Or sorry, at Cardinals? I think they can win one of those games. We'll see if they do. The Rams, though, they're beat up. They're playing on borrowed time right now. They're going to lose close ones like this. They're going to steal some like they did last week against the Niners, but that's where we're at with them right now.
The Rams offensively really just couldn't do much, compete with the Bears defense. The Bears defense was phenomenal in this game. Matt Stafford doesn't throw for a touchdown, 224 yards and a pick. They had to run the ball a lot with Kyron Williams. Really just the offense couldn't get a rhythm and get going with the Bears defense having a great week. And for Caleb Williams, in the first half, they struggled, only 97 total yards in the first half, but the second half was a completely different story for the Bears offense, 264 yards in the second half. They have a solid game running the football. They proved that maybe they can run the football. So good for them there. Still a lot to improve offensively. Seems like they had a meeting, or Caleb Williams got a meeting with Shane Waldron to criticize his play calling in just his 3rd career NFL game. So interesting.
That was wild. That was so wild.
Interesting to do as a rookie. He must think he knows more than Shane Waldron. I don't know, but
He might, honestly.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me. DJ Moore gets a nice touchdown. It kind of looked a little upset again going into that uh, until he finally had gotten the touchdown. Only 3 catches for 22 yards for him. Rome Odunze very quiet in this one, only 1 catch. But it's a good win for the Bears. You're 2-2 now, and that stretch, I only think I hear 2 wins in those 5 games. I think the Commanders are good. I don't know.
I mean, I agree, but they
Maybe
gotta
the
they
Cardinals. I
they
don't
gotta
know.
find. I mean, if they go 2-3 in that stretch, they're cooked. They
Yeah.
are. They're cooked.
I I guess what was the one team? The Jaguars could be a win.
Yeah, no, I think the Jaguars should be a win. I think they gotta win that game.
Yeah.
But the Jaguars
Who
are
knows?
they're one of the many random teams we have right now in this league. We have a ton. But moving on here, as my laptop is doing the same thing it did last episode, and it just cannot handle too many ESPN windows. But regardless, moving on to the Broncos and the Jets. The Broncos win this one 10-9. This was truly an absurd game. The first 8 drives of this game were 3 plays or less between these two teams, which is just almost impossible to do. It was either a 3-and-out or they fumbled or threw a pick in the first 3 plays. That was the only thing that happened for 8 drives. In those 8 drives, do you know how many yards they accumulated between the two teams?
Um, 100.
Negative 14
Oh,
in the
jeez.
first 8 drives of this game.
Yeah.
There was 15 punts in this game. Rodgers finishes with 225, which is a shocking 225 considering how bad they were this
Yeah.
game. That was just strictly a bunch of bad drives adding up. You eventually have enough bad drives, you're going to have an okay day. That's kind of what it led to. He didn't have that many insane mistakes on his end. Garrett Wilson just got completely locked up by Pat Surtain, just straight up. The Broncos, they were able to run the ball on 2 drives in this game, and that was just enough to win. They were able to run the ball all the way and score, and they were able to run the ball and get in field goal range to kick a field goal, and that's all they had to do to win this game. Their defense was phenomenal. The Jets, 4 Jets receivers had 4 more catches in this one, but first downs was just a significant problem for them. They go 4 for 17 on third down and over 2 in the red zone. Jets offense just could not execute today. It looked like a Zach Wilson Jets team, really, where they just could not score points no matter how good their defense was playing. Broncos defense just played out of their minds in this one though, and they've honestly, I look back, they've been pretty solid in all 4 games this year so far. 13.75 points per game so far, giving up through 4 games. That's pretty solid for a team that going into the season, frankly, they did not have a ton of talent. They still, on paper, don't, but they've been really solid so far. I think they're going to be a really popular underdog team that a lot of people should take on the spread, especially in big spreads. Moving forward, I'm going to consider that all of these teams like them who are dog shit, but they have good enough defenses where they could stay in games. Those are the teams you want to take those big spreads on. I think they're going to get them at points. I hope they don't start winning too many games and start becoming like near favorites in games. I hope they keep losing, but keeping it close and we can capitalize on some big spreads. But they look phenomenal today and tough loss for the Jets at home too.
Yeah. They did look very good. The conditions for the game weren't very
Yeah.
good. It was pretty rainy, just bad all around, and the Jets just weren't able to really run the football. Braylon Allen 8 for 34, Brees Hall 10 for 4. Aaron Rodgers finishes with 5 carries in the stat book. That's absolutely absurd. He did injure his leg that he had tore his Achilles on. Was kind of limping a little bit, so that's a little scary if you're a New York Jets fan. You do not want to see that. But just the offense on both sides of the field, very, very poor looking. Garrett Wilson was locked up. Mike Williams, he got a couple catches for the Broncos offensively. Bo Nix finishes with 60 yards and 12 completions. In the first half, he had -7 passing yards on 7 completions. Don't really know how that's possible overall, but um, they still found a way to win even with that. Their defense played solid. They were able to just score enough than the Jets defense, who played good as well. Jets had a chance to win this game with a Greg Zuerlein kick. He couldn't get it done. Rodgers, disappointing game. You hate to lose this one as a Jets. Um, as the Jets, you really needed this game kind of to stay up top with some of the teams in your division, like the Bills, who have been, well, basically just the Bills, who have been very good at this point. Rodgers was sacked 5 times in this one. Really can't be having that. The Jets had 13 penalties. Kind of just killed themselves offensively overall, and bad weather, penalties. Didn't really turn the ball over, but not a recipe to win the game.
No, not at all. And we move on here to a team that finally got their first win of the season. The Bengals win 34-24 in Carolina against the Panthers. They finally get win number one. Their offense now has looked good in back-to-back games. They look good against a bad Commanders defense. They look good against a bad Panthers defense. Bengals finally ran the ball well in this one. They looked good. They ran for 141 yards on the ground. They really got both of their running backs and Brown and Moss involved. Both of them get 15 carries in this one, and they looked a lot better on the ground. Dalton looked solid for the Panthers as we expected, nothing crazy. Chuba Hubbard though ran it for 18 carries, 104 and a touchdown. He had a 38-yard carry at one point in this one. They ran it very, very well with him, and that just shows as good as the Bengals offense can look for bad teams, their defense is just consistently across the board bad. If they're stopping the run, they can't stop the pass. If they're stopping the pass, they can't stop the run. And a lot of times they can't really stop either, and that is becoming a problem for them. I don't know if the Bengals can make the playoffs with this defense. I know Hendrickson went down late in this one. I don't know what his status is, but Bengals are getting to the point where they're going to start putting themselves in a spot where they have to score 30 points a game. That's what it's looking like right now, and that's just not sustainable in this league. They're going to have some games where their defense plays better. If I've figured out one thing through 4 weeks, it's nothing is consistent. So they're gonna have a game probably next week where they go and they look like the best defense in the league. But so far, they've looked like dog shit. They need to improve, or Joe Burrow has to put up 30 a game, one or the other.
Bengals defense, like you said, did not look good in this one. And or maybe Andy Dalton's Panthers offense is just that good. Who
Yeah,
knows?
maybe.
Like you said, nothing's been consistent this year. Deontay Johnson has another good game with Dalton at quarterback, 7 catches, 83 yards and a touchdown. He was solid. Xavier Legette gets his first career NFL touchdown, so good for him. Chuba Hubbard, like you said, he was good on the ground. It does sound like Jonathan Brooks will be coming back soon, so it'll be interesting to see if Chuba Hubbard will keep control of the backfield or if they'll hand it over to their second round draft pick. The Bengals offense, very good in this one. Joe Burrow has a solid game. They were able to run the ball well in this one. Chase Brown and Zach Moss both had 15 carries and both looked pretty good out there. Chase Brown had 2 rushing touchdowns. I think Zach Moss, yeah, he had a receiving touchdown. So 2 running backs and had high scoring fantasy football days as well, those two. But the Bengals defense, like you said, was not good. Trey Hendrickson got hurt again, this time with a neck stinger. Um, Joe Burrow also got hurt during the game, got his ankle stepped on, but said he was fine. He just kind of slowed him down a little bit. He said he was I quote, Joe Burrow said he's sneaky athletic, so good for him. It was a do or die game for the Bengals. They win it. Absolutely could not lose this game. They get it done, and now they just need to keep stacking wins.
Yes, that's what they have to do. And yeah, I don't. What does their schedule look like going forward? I didn't get to take a look. Let's see
Or just lost it. I just had it.
who they've got going forward here.
They got the Ravens next week. It's gonna be a tough one.
Yeah,
Then they got the
as the Ravens
Giants,
go up
Browns,
three
Eagles.
scores on Buffalo.
Yeah,
But yeah, Giants, Bengals, or sorry, Giants, Browns, Eagles, Raiders, and then Ravens again. Yeah, I mean, even the bad teams in there, like the Giants and
the
possibly the
Browns.
Browns and the Raiders, are all scrappy teams. So, that's brutal. I look at that 6 game stretch, and realistically, you're sitting at 1-3 right now. You think you probably got to go at minimum 3-3, and that's not easy. That's not easy here. So we'll see. The Bengals have to shape up before it's too late. But moving on here to the Buccaneers beating the Eagles 33-16 in Tampa Bay. Vita Vea ended up playing in this game, and I still switched my pick like a dummy in this one. The Bucks just smacked them early. They never gave up. 24-0 start to this game. The Eagles secondary, man, is just so, I mean, they're young, so we called it. We said in the beginning of the year. Same thing with the Ravens and the Lions. Their secondary is so bipolar. They will have a great game in New Orleans against a great passing offense in New Orleans, and then they get fried in Tampa Bay against Baker, who just lost to the Broncos last week. The Bucks have one of the worst pass rushes in the league they had going into this week. Hurts gets sacked 6 times in this one. No Lane Johnson really hurt them, and that just adds on to the absurdity, like we said, of this league so far, where you think you know something. You think you know the Bucks pass rush isn't there. It's something that's been talked about league wide, and they go and they get 6 sacks in this one. Saquon had a solid day, but they were down by so much so early that he didn't get to have much work. He only gets 10 carries. He does get 8 yards a carry in this one, though. The Eagles seriously missed AJ Brown and Devontae Smith in this one. Not having either of them was a big problem. Hurts goes 18 for 30, only throws 158 in this one. But the Bucks last week had a fluke game versus the Broncos, and that's a Broncos defense that we just talked about is very, very hot right now. They got back to business this week. I like this Buccaneers team a lot. If the Buccaneers can sustain somewhat of a pass rush like we saw today, they don't have to get 6 sacks like we saw today, but if they can have a decent pass rush and get 3 sacks a game, pressure quarterbacks, this team can be dominant. And if they can do that, this team is my favorite coming out of this division right now.
Yeah, we're coming off a week. I was very high on the Bucks after the first 3 weeks of the season, and then they come out and lay a stinker. And I should have expected them to come out and get their revenge on the Eagles, even though they beat the Eagles. I thought the Eagles would come out and want revenge for 2 of their last 3 playoff losses being against the Buccaneers, but that's not the case. This Buccaneers team continued their ways. They look very, very good. AJ Brown not playing, Devontae Smith not playing, that hurts them. Like you said, the Eagles offense really just couldn't move on the Buccaneers defense. The Hurts only 158 yards passing. Like you said, Saquon didn't get much going on the ground. Dallas Goedert continues to be their leading target with Brown and Devontae Smith out. That's good. Their secondary for the Eagles, though, again, after a week where they looked better against the Saints, goes out and does not look good in this one. Mike Evans, 8 catches, 94 yards, touchdown. Chris Godwin, 6 catches, 69 yards. Baker Mayfield looked very good in this one. He had a couple throws that he just put on the money. He's been phenomenal. He looks like he's going to hopefully stay doing phenomenal things. He is rough last week, but good in this one. Rashad White and Bucky Irving go 50-50 on the carries in this one. We said Bucky Irving was going to get more carries going forward. They tied with carries and yards, but Bucky Irving does get a touchdown to help him. So great win for the Bucks. They continue to stay hot, and I'd say they're my favorite to come out of this division so far, but just one random loss so far for them. Otherwise, they've looked very good.
All right, staying in this division, moving on to the Falcons beating the Saints 26-24. Atlanta wins this one with a late Younghoe Koo field goal. We talked about it during the game or earlier today. He is really cementing himself as a top 5 kicker in this league right now. He's reliable. I feel like he hits more game-winning kicks than like any other kicker. He's maybe it's because the Falcons are always in a game where they need a field goal to win it, but regardless, he's always been very reliable for them in his tenure there. Atlanta punts to open the game, but Shaheed muffs it, and Atlanta gets a free touchdown off rip, and really that just put them in position to win this game. We talked about earlier all the muff punts and muff kicks this week. This was one of them that definitely affected the game and had a huge impact, as you can see it here. Atlanta's offense honestly just did not look good in this one. They had a pick six, and then they had that muff punt touchdown that really carried them early in this one, especially on the scoreboard, and their offense really wasn't able to do much outside of throwing that pick six from Derek Carr. Nola's offense was pretty solid in this one. Both Olave and Shaheed get 8 catches. Bijan gets out carried by Algier in this one, though. I think he might have an injury. I saw some people saying shoulder, some people saying hamstring, but doesn't really make much sense why he goes out there and gets 7 carries to Algier's 8 in this one. And doesn't make sense why they only run the ball 15 times, but that's neither here nor there. I think both these teams are the same level right now. I think for different reasons. I think they're both decently strong defensively. I think the Falcons have a little bit of an edge defensively. I think the Falcons probably have more talent offensively, but I trust the Saints offense more at this point. But they're very on the same level. And like we said, this division is on the up and up. I think all three, these two teams in the Bucks, I think all three of these teams are pretty solid teams. The Saints are just here's the difference. The Falcons are, although I think they're the same level as the Saints, the Falcons so far have showed us that when shit hits the fan, they can go steal a win. They stole this win. They stole the win versus the Eagles in week 2 on Monday Night Football. Those were 2 games where they had their back against the wall. They easily could have lost those 2 games. They easily could be sitting at 0-4 right now, which is crazy to say, and they're not. They win on 2 late scores and win those 2 games. While the Saints, they start 2-0, and then last week they play way worse than their opponent. They barely lost. They were able to get themselves in a spot where they can win that game despite not playing that good. And then this week, they play better than the Falcons for most of this game, and they barely lose because they have a key mistake like a muff punt. And that's the difference between two teams who are the same level. One team figures out a way to win. Some teams just figure out a way to lose, and that's what it looks like early on. But we're just 4 weeks in, and we'll see how this plays out. But so far, the Falcons look a little bit more battle tested and ready to win these tough games, despite it not always looking too flashy.
Yeah, and going into this game, I thought that would be the Saints. That would be the team more
Right,
battle tested
right.
going into it with the veteran defense and coaching staff. But Falcons, they get the pass interference late, puts them in field goal range, and Young Wei Koo, gets the kick to go in. And I actually do have the stat. This is his 8th game-winning kick since the beginning of 2021.
Wow.
So, I mean, just an absolute tank.
I'm assuming he's 8 for 8.
I'd assume so, yes. He's kicked today. He kicked from 53, 44, and 42. He's one of the best kickers. He's easily top 5 right now. Falcons get a big win in the division, trying to keep up with the Buccaneers now, and they were able to get it done. Didn't have as much of a run game in this one, and the pass game was okay, not great, but they're able to find a way to win. A gritty win. Alvin Kamara has another big game on the ground. That's what I thought was going to happen going into this. Has 77 yards on the ground, and then in the receiving game, he has 42 yards. Solid game from him. Rashid Shaheed, solid game as well. 8 catches for 83 yards, but the muffed punt is really the story for him in the game, giving the Falcons a free touchdown.
Right.
Just can't have that happen. Olave was solid. Uh, they did get a pick six with the Falcons. Got a pick six with Troy Anderson that helped them. Saints, they're gonna have to beat them the next time they see them. The Falcons, and in that game will be in New Orleans, but close game. Should have had them if you're the Saints. You just gotta continue winning games now and stay fighting for that division lead.
When is that? Do we know when that game is? I don't
Then
recall.
next time the last game of the season for the Saints is the Buccaneers. That's gonna probably be a big one. These two teams play in 11-10.
11-10. Oh, okay, so they got a while. But I'm barring any crazy injuries, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say the Saints win that game.
Yeah,
I think it benefits them. Their home field advantage means more to me than Atlanta's does because they don't have Ritter anymore. That was the only reason why their home field advantage mattered at all. But where is Ritter? Is he still in the league?
I heard he was door
He on the
dashing.
Yeah. Is he on the Browns or something?
The Cardinals.
Cardinals. Oh, okay. I could see it. Same colors and whatnot, but
He
uh,
actually a month ago he cleared concussion protocol.
oh wow, good for him.
So good for him.
Didn't help the Cardinals this week at home, but we'll get to that here in a bit. Um, Moving on to the Texans, the final 1 o'clock game. Texans beat the Jaguars 24-20. I believe the Jaguars at this very moment of recording, because the Titans have not played yet, are the only 0-4 team in the league. They are the only two teams without a win are two teams from that division, the Titans and the Jaguars. And according to my model, which has never been wrong, the Titans will be 0-4 after tomorrow. But regardless, the Jaguars lose today against the Texans. The score is a little bit deceiving in this one based on what actually happened, but this is another one. The Jaguars come out. They did look way better than last week. Of course they did. They looked dog shit last week and should have known that they would come back into this game and look significantly better. Another muffed punt, though, on the first punt of this game, putting Jacksonville up 7 to start the game, gave them a free 7. Unlike the Falcons, they were not able to capitalize on that and win the game, excuse me. But they regardless get that free 7 to start the game. Stroud and the Texans offense had a great first half, but they kind of fell apart in the second half on this one. Stroud goes back to his no interception ways. Texans are struggling to run the ball without Mixon, though. They had a great start to the season. They were a team that we didn't think were going to be a phenomenal run team this year, but they had a phenomenal start to the season, especially against Indy with Joe Mixon, and he's gone out, and they really haven't had anything since. I look at the Texans as like just a better version of the Bengals. Like, they don't run the ball well, but they run it better than the Bengals do. They haven't had the best defense all year, but they've been better in every aspect than the Bengals. And they're both teams that like to air it out. The Texans are just a more refined version of it, and that's why you see their records flipping here. Collins goes 151 on 12 catches for the Texans. He was phenomenal. The Texans did shoot themselves in the foot at times in this one, though. They committed 12 penalties. Between the penalties, the muff punt, and getting ran all over, that's really what just kept the Jags in this one and kept it close. But like I said, the score is a bit deceiving here. Jacksonville did look slightly better, especially in the second half defensively, but the Texans didn't really ever feel like they were gonna fully lose this game. Jacksonville didn't play great. They got that free 7 to start, and I'm not taking this as a point in Jacksonville's direction whatsoever. They're still in that category with the Browns for me, where not believing it.
Yeah, they're 0-4, but they do finally get one win against the spread, so they're now 1-3 against the spread. Good for them in that. moral victories. Good teams win, great teams cover. Trevor Lawrence was better in this game. Didn't throw an interception, 2 touchdowns. Just was unable to get it done again. They had a goal to go situation that kind of could have won them the game, but they go and turn the ball over on downs, couldn't get the ball in the end zone, and it just kills them again. ETN went out of this game early. I think he came back, but Tank Bigsby really continues, in my opinion, to look better than ETN overall as the Jaguars running back. Defensively, you're going against CJ Stroud. You hold the Texans offense to 24 points. That's solid. Could have been better, but the Texans, no run game really. CJ Stroud, 345 yards, 2 touchdowns, gets the ball to Nico Collins for 12 catches, 151 yards. He continues to be the wide receiver one. Stephon Diggs gets a rushing touchdown in this game. That is his first career rushing touchdown. And with 18 seconds left, they get the touchdown to Darryl Goombawale, former Jaguar, to really make it sting that much more for the Jaguars. Texans continue to kind of own the Jags. They've beat them. I had the number up here. They had won 10 of the past 12 games and make it 11 of the past 13. So Jaguars got to figure something out. The season's pretty much out of hand almost at this point. You got to salvage whatever you can at this point.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's looking pretty doom and gloom there. I'm not going to be fooled by a close score in this one. I don't know who, let me see who they play next week. They have the Colts, yeah. We just talked about that.
Yeah.
The Colts and then the
That's
Bears
oh
and then the
boy.
Patriots. So they're gonna win at least one of those games. Colts, Jags, or Colts, Bears, Patriots. They're gonna find
Well,
a way
they're
to.
going to London soon, so
That's the Bears game. They're going to London against the Bears, which we just talked about that as being a game the Bears could win. And now what are we? We're about to convince ourselves it's the game the Jags are going to win now.
yeah.
But no, they could. I think there's two sides to that coin. But moving on here to first of our 4 o'clock games, the Niners win 30-13 against the aforementioned New England Patriots. 49ers offense looked a lot better today. They got Debo back. They got Trent Williams back. They looked good in this one. I wasn't expecting Debo to play in this game, but woke up this morning, I saw a report maybe last night it was that they said he was going to play. I was excited to see that for them. Another one with a muffed kickoff. This one was to start the second half. If that didn't happen for San Francisco, this game is probably 30-6. They look a lot more. I mean, 30-13 looks dominant as well, but it probably would have been about 30-6. I think that's 4 muff punts for touchdowns / muff kicks for touchdowns in this week. An absolute insane run. Does Lamar fumble here?
Yeah.
Clear recovery?
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Bills needed that. Put some life in them, but regardless, it seemed like whenever San Francisco needed points in this game, they could get it. And New England's defense, I do feel, is a pretty tough unit overall. They've given some teams, even like the Bengals, they gave problems this year offensively, and the Niners really looked clean over it, even without Christian McCaffrey, who they still don't have, and we're still not giving them enough credit for not having. Debo being in there did make a significant difference for them. He was solid in this one. He finishes with just 2 catches for 14 yards, but 2 rushes for 14 yards. He gets 3 catches for 58, including a 53-yard catch at one point in this one. San Francisco's pass rush looked good without Hargrave. They get 6 sacks in this one over the pass, which was something we're really worried about, especially with that D-line going into this game without Hargrave. They look solid. They got the Pats to turn this one over 3 times. San Francisco ends up doubling them up in yards, and honestly, this San Francisco team is under the radar after a shaky start. They're still a super good unit. They've had a ton of injuries. They, of course, don't have McCaffrey. They don't have Hargrave. But regardless, this is a sneaky unit. I think they're going to just continue to be good and win games. And people are going to forget about them because they're so hurt. But they look dominant today, and I think they're going to continue to be pretty good.
People always have been saying about Brock Purdy that he needs all 5 of his weapons to be a top quarterback, but these last 2 weeks he hasn't had all of his weapons, and he's continued to look very good. Last week he looked great. This week he continues it up with another solid performance. Didn't have to do too much. A lot of handoffs to Jordan Mason at 24 carries, 123 yards, and a touchdown. He was great. Jawan Jennings continues to kind of be the lead receiver. He has 3 catches for 88 yards. Good for him. The Niners pretty much dominated them for the entire game. offensively and defensively. Jacoby Brissett couldn't get much going at all for the Patriots offense. Kind of was surprised they didn't try Drake May maybe a little bit in the second half, but it is a defense maybe you don't want him to see, considering that 49ers defense can be very good if they're playing well. Again, no really run game for New England. They had looked good running the ball to start the season, unable to kind of continue that these last 2 weeks. So we'll see if they can find the run game. I think they'll be a scrappy team that can play some of the better teams close. But if they don't have a run game, I don't see this Patriots team sticking close with a lot of these top teams. So good win for the 49ers. They covered. Love to see it. I think that probably was the biggest spread covered so far this year, considering most of them haven't. So nice win.
Okay, moving on here to a team that I'm super excited to talk about. The Commanders beating the Cardinals 42-14. What an impressive performance once again here from the Commanders. Jaden Daniels is legit, 26 for 30. If their defense was just a little bit better, they'd probably be 4-0 right now with a rookie quarterback, which is insanely impressive. Brian Robinson was super effective in this one, 21 carries for 101. He's had a great start of the year. He's a true RB1 there now. Commander secondary somehow managed to maintain Kyler and Marvin, which scares me a little bit about the Cardinals because this is back-to-back weeks now of bad passing offenses for them. They looked great against the Rams, but they struggled against the Lions, and the Lions are a good unit, so we gave them some grace. But this Commanders unit's one of the worst in the NFL, and they struggled, and they fall to 1-3 now. I'm not out on the Cardinals yet. I'm still in on the Cardinals, but the Commanders just seem like a freight train right now. Back-to-back big weeks for Terry McLaurin as well. He was solid in this one, gets a touchdown. Commanders were a super impressive 9 for 12 on third down in this game. They were just able to keep getting first downs, keep moving the ball, and of course, subsequently putting it in the end zone as I get 42 points in this one. The Commanders secondary is a bad unit, and I still think that's going to bite them in the ass, but their offense right now looks good enough to compete with anyone. And their next five is Browns, and then at Ravens, Panthers at home, Bears at home, and then at Giants. They could easily go 3-2, 4-1 in that stretch. And then, I mean, if they go 3-2, they're sitting at 6-3 to start the year. If they go 4-1, which is very doable, they could lose to the Ravens and then beat the Browns, Panthers, Bears, and Giants. Then they're sitting at 7-2 to start the year. I don't want to get ahead of myself because their defense is not good, especially on the back end. But if they can score like this every game, they could easily go in that stretch and put themselves in a good spot moving forward.
Like you said, their defense is not
And
very
Bears fans are
good.
sick.
Yeah, their defense is not very good, but Jaden Daniels is very good. Continues to be phenomenal. The run game with Brian Robinson was very good today. 21 carries, 101 yards, and a touchdown. He was great. Jaden Daniels didn't have to run the ball as much. Still does get a rushing touchdown. I was most shocked by the Cardinals defense, or the Cardinals offense not being able to score in the Commanders defense. That was a good performance from Dan Quinn's unit, something they really needed. Jane Daniels, he got the ball to Terry McLaurin again. They're starting to develop a connection that could be scary. The Commanders are now in sole position of first, I think, in the NFC East. So good for them. The Cowboys won it last year. No team in like the last 10 or so years has won it back to
20, I
back
think.
years.
I think it's
That's
20.
20. I know
Yeah.
it's been a ridiculously long
Yeah,
time.
there was like
So
04 or something. It's been a while.
so maybe the Commanders come and steal it out of absolutely nowhere. But for the Cardinals, kind of a shocking performance from them offensively. I thought they would score more. They ran the ball pretty well with James Conner. He had 104 yards on the ground, had a touchdown, but Kyler was unable to get hot in this one and really pass the ball well. So great win for the Commanders. And if their defense can perform like this, they are going to be a very, very hard team to beat.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on here though to the Chiefs beating the Chargers 17-10. We just found out, unfortunately, that Rashee Rice may have torn his ACL in this one. It does not look good for him on a play where Mahomes throws a pick and then he's trying to make a tackle and he ends up rolling up on Rashee Rice. And very unfortunate injury. You hate to see that. Chiefs, though, yet again, winning a close game where they don't look great, but I'm unfazed. I still think they're the top Super Bowl threat. I think we're going to see this for years to come now. I think they're going to look in the regular season, but they're going to end up winning a lot more games than they end up losing. They're going to finish with a great seed, and they're going to make a run in the playoffs. Kareem Hunt, though, led them in carries today. It looks like he's going to be the RB1 going forward here. We're probably not going to have Pacheco for a long time going forward. Kelsey got significantly more involved today. He has not really been involved in those first three games. They made it a point to involve him today. I think he's going to have a huge role going forward, especially with the injuries. I think we're going to see more looking prime Kelsey over the next few weeks here as we see him get 7 for 89. He just doesn't get, he's a touchdown away from having a phenomenal game this week. Just comes up just short of that, but 7 catches. We take that all day on 9 targets. Chiefs' run defense was unexpectedly really, really good today. They shut down a Chargers team that's been running over everybody right now. The Chargers' offense as a whole was really, really stagnant. Had to punt it 6 times. They were playing with an injured Herbert. They win the turnover battle 2-0, but their offense was so bad that they couldn't capitalize on it. Your offense has to be really, really struggling to win the turnover battle 2-0 and lose the game. It's really brutal for them. For the Chiefs, though, I think we see Kelsey, Worthy, and Hunt really have a good run here from the Chiefs. Now that they're down Rice, Hollywood Brown, and Pacheco, those three, Worthy, Kelsey, and Hunt, are really going to have to step up to the plate. They're really going to have to dominate. I think they do. I think we see a lot of the same moving forward here for the Chiefs. I think they're going to win a lot of close games. I think they're going to continue to have a great record, and they're going to skate to winning this division. As for the Chargers, they got to go into Denver next week, which is a tough game against a really tough defense in Denver, but a defense that can be run on. And then they got to go into Arizona. Maybe Arizona will figure out their problems by then. And they got New Orleans and Cleveland, but and then the Titans. So they have some winnable games going forward here. I still do think that this is probably the second best team in this division, the Chargers, but it's always tough to knock off Mahomes, even when you think you're playing them well.
Yeah, what year is it with Mahomes, Kelsey, and Kareem Hunt now being three of the main guys for the
I
Chiefs?
know.
Very wild to see. Craziest stat I saw from this game. Well, I think it's 9 straight wins for the Chiefs, but the craziest stat they said right after the game ended is that Mahomes is 12-0 when trailing by exactly 10 points. I don't know how that's like possible, but it is. Mahomes just
He's pretty good, I
he
think.
goes down 10 points and then immediately, I mean, the Chiefs win the game. So you're going to have to go for 2 or miss the extra point on purpose. I don't know if you go up by 9 points. Chargers were unable to really pass the ball in the Chiefs defense. The run game that they had been kind of banking on so far all season wasn't there with J.K. Dobbins.
Pullman's got to catch that.
Yeah.
Got to catch that.
He's a rookie.
That's a ball they drafted him to catch.
Speaking of a guy who he only had 1 catch for 9 yards, Quentin Johnson. He does at least get a catch. Ladd McConkey looks like he might be the wide receiver 1 for the Chargers. 5 catches, 67 yards, and a touchdown. He's starting to develop a connection with Herbert, but not too much good from Herbert in this game overall. Chiefs, Mahomes, bad interception, like you said. Rashee Rice unfortunately hurt. That one really hurts the fantasy owners and just the Chiefs offense in general. He had been looking very good and like an absolute weapon for this Chiefs offense. So that one's going to be a tough loss. Not much Carson Steele in this one. Fumbled early and really never saw the field too much after that. A lot of Kareem Hunt. So good win for the Chiefs. Kelsey's back to or has a game where he looks like he's the main guy again. 7 catches, 89 yards. Good for him. Chiefs just find ways to win games like this. So can't go up can't go up 10 on the Chiefs, otherwise you might be in trouble.
Yeah, and this was the best the Chiefs' defenses looked this year so far too, and the worst their offenses looked. But
Yeah.
good teams find a way to not have bad days on both ends. That's just what happens. But
And Butker missed a kick
yeah, so every
at a neutral site though, so that's good. Oh.
yeah, neutral site. Yeah, that was that's just the Chiefs though. They could fuck up in so many portions of the game, but they're gonna have one spot where they're gonna have one unit that performs very, very well, and then they're just hard to beat when they got that guy on the other side. But moving on here to our final game of the recap. Raiders beating the Browns 20-16, minus Max Crosby, minus Devontae Adams. They beat the Browns. The Browns moved to 1-3 on the year. They're in that category for me now with the Jags of teams that I just cannot stand at the current moment. Deshaun, though, I hate to be the guy defending Deshaun. I really do. But he doesn't have a great game, but he ends up having a better game than I almost said Baker Mayfield. Then Gardner Minshew on the other side. He has the better game than the opposing quarterback. They lose this one. The Browns just have no ability to run the ball or block, and it just continues to kill them game after game. The Browns offense came out of the gate with a touchdown drive and a field goal drive, but then proceeded to go punt, interception, punt, downs to end the game. And that's just not how you can respond after having such a good start. It looked like, okay, the Browns are here to play. We're finally seeing their offense come alive. We know what their defense is going to be on a game-to-game basis, and that just was not the case here today. The Raiders' offense didn't look fantastic, but they found ways to put points on the board more often than the Browns could. The Raiders did score on 4 consecutive drives in the middle of that Browns slump that I just spoke of, and that was a critical part of this game. Like I said, I know Deshaun has not been great, and I do not want to be the guy to defend him, but his O line and his run game are failing him more than anything right now. And if those two units were improved, or at least one of those two units were improved, I think he would look a lot better. But regardless, the Browns are going to be a team where, as much as they look bad, I'm like, okay, Nick Chubb is back in practice this week. He's good enough where he could run good without a good O line. This O line was good at one point. We've seen O lines flip from they were great one year and then they look like shit and they figure it out mid year. We've seen it happen. I think it could still happen with the Browns. I wouldn't fully give up on them yet, but they got to figure out a way to run the ball or it's going to be a tough year offensively for them.
Who knows how Nick Chubb will look coming back from that injury, but they're going to need him to almost look like prime Nick Chubb if they
Right.
really
Yeah.
want to
That's
turn this
that.
season around.
And that's not something you want to bet on coming off
No,
an ACL.
Raiders really the only difference between these two teams were the Raiders were able to run the ball better overall, had 152 yards on the ground compared to the Browns 92. Both teams didn't pass the ball great. It was kind of just a defensive battle. Devontae Adams doesn't play in this one. I think he has a hamstring injury. And I saw that something saying if they don't win a couple games here soon, that they're going to consider trading him very soon, which will be interesting. I know a team out in New York that's probably looking for a receiver to complement Garrett Wilson, but meet a reunion with an old friend. But the Raiders win this game. Uh, Browns overall offensively just don't have the run game or anything really going. Deshaun hasn't. I don't even know what to say about the Browns team because we just say it every week. They need to run the ball. They need to run the ball, and they just continue to not be able to. Deshaun has to kind of play superhero ball, and he's not good enough at this point to do that. Their defense plays well, but just not well enough to win the game. It's been the story of the year so far for the Browns. So good win for the Raiders trying to just stay in contention for a playoff spot.
Okay, moving on to our studs and duds for the week. I am so glad in this era of the pod to be able to do this and say that my stud of the week for week 4 of the NFL season is none other than Justin Fields of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was he was phenomenal today. He gets the L, of course. He doesn't have that drive to end the game that they wanted him to have, but he gets 3 total touchdowns. Like I said, the second most passing yards of his career in a single game at 312. He didn't always have the most clean pocket. He finishes with a QBR of 60.7, but a rating of 104. He looked great in this one. I think he's QB1 moving forward. I think the Steelers would be dumb to put Russell Wilson in at this point. You wait for Fields. If he continues to play this good, you keep him in. If he has a fall off, then you have Russ waiting in the arms. But I trust Mike Tomlin. I think he'll do the right thing.
Yeah, there's a couple guys I'm looking at for studs of the week. Man, there's not one I feel like that had a game better than the others, but I'm gonna go with I think I'm gonna go with Malik Neighbors on Thursday night. He really was a lot of the Giants' offense. He was phenomenal. 12 catches, 115 yards. Does get hurt late, but he was the best player on the field for him. Honorable mention, I'll say Torrey Taylor of the Bears, their punter. He was able to pin the Rams deep a couple times late in the game and kind of just shut their offense down from there. He was great. And Jaden Daniels as well for just continuing to have this Commanders offense. He deserves it. He didn't get a chance to get one last week with him playing on Monday night, but he's been phenomenal.
I thought Taylor wasn't going to pump much this year. Wasn't that the plan? According to
He's
Caleb Williams.
he's been he's been punting all year.
Yeah, hasn't stopped punting. Repetitive, just constant punting.
Yeah,
But
his
um,
very sore.
yeah, for sure. But my dud for the week is Breece Hall. It's crazy to imagine that he went third in a lot of people's fantasy drafts, and he's yet to eclipse 62 yards in a game yet. He goes for just 4 yards on 10 carries in a game where it was pouring the whole time. He gets 2 catches for 14 yards, which helps him out a little bit in the fantasy department, but he's had a really rough year to start out. The Jets haven't been able to run the ball at all. This is a game where they had to run the ball and they couldn't get it done. So, very unimpressive performance from Breece Hall.
Yeah, and I think I'm gonna stick with that team and maybe go with his teammate Garrett Wilson, who
Yep.
so far this year. Had a lot of hype going into the season with a quarterback. And I think in the third quarter in Sleeper, they have fumbles count as 3 points if you lose a fumble. I think he had negative -0.2 fantasy points through 3 quarters. Just
Wait, what is the
embarrassing for.
rule? What's the rule?
Well, you lose 2 points for a lost fumble, and then if you just fumble the ball in general, it's automatically 1 point
Oh wow.
loss. So if you lose a fumble, that's 3 points
That's how
in
it should
Sleeper
be. Because
leagues.
I know some leagues it's like if you don't lose it, it doesn't even
It's
count.
nothing. Yeah.
It should be something
I
guaranteed.
think it should be one for both, but I'm pretty sure it's 3
Yeah.
total.
Brutal.
But bad performance from him. The Jets offense. You could put Aaron Rodgers in there too. He struggled bad. You could put him in there as well, but yeah, I'll go with Garrett Wilson.
All right, that will about do it for this episode of the Engage 8 podcast. We will be back on Wednesday with a big episode. We will be recapping week 5 or week 6 of the college football season, right? Is
Week
it week
five.
6?
Week 5. It's only 1 week ahead. I'm pretty sure it's week 5.
Oh, they're going into week 6. Yeah,
They're
yeah,
going into week 6.
it's the week 5 recap as well as recapping Sunday Night Football and the 2 Monday night games from week 4 of the NFL season. And then we will end that episode giving you some betting picks and preparing you for every game of week 5 of the NFL season. Until then, you can hit all the links in our description for Spotify, TikTok, and all that good stuff. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And we will see everybody in the next one.